According to Dr. Fenton Ferguson, who is one of the longtime People's National Party's members and veterans, Mark Golding has all the necessary skill sets and qualifications to take over the leadership reins of the People's National Party. Veteran politician Dr. Fenton Ferguson has clearly stated that People's National Party's presidential candidate, Mark Golding, has all the appropriate experience, qualifications, and skill sets to lead the People's National Party at this very moment. Ferguson is one of the latest and most recent person in a long list of prominent People's National Party's members to endorse Mark Golding to become the next PNP president. According to Dr. Fenton Ferguson, he is supporting Mark Golding. He also believes that Mark Golding is the man for the time and a man for the season. He is one who represents a unifying force. According to Dr. Fenton Ferguson, who is a former PNP vice president, he further went on to state, "I believe that with Mark Golding's experience in government as Minister of Justice, in the party as treasurer, and in his own constituency of St. Andrew Southern, he has demonstrated that he is a people-oriented person. Mark Golding has good communication skills. He has good interpersonal skills, and I, Dr. Fenton Ferguson, believe that at this time, the party needs a Mark Golding." After being the parliamentary representative for East St. Thomas for 6 terms, Dr. Fenton Ferguson was recently defeated by the Jamaica Labour Party's Michelle Charles in the recently concluded September 3rd general elections. Huge endorsements have been coming in for Mark Golding as the next president of the People's National Party. And these endorsements have come from not only Dr. Fenton Ferguson, but also Dr. Angela Brown Burke, Patricia Duncan Sutherland, Noel Arscott, Anthony Hilton, Sean Branswell, Anthony O'Connor, and Lydia Richards are some of these prominent PNP members who have thrown their support behind Mark Golding's presidential campaign. Lisa Hanna, however, should not be outdone, as she is being supported by Dr. Morris Guy, Denise Daly, Mikhail Phillips, Natalie Nita, Dr. Andre Horton, Dwayne Vaz, and Audrey Facey Smith. These are just some of the most well-known PNP politicians who have thrown their support behind the presidential campaign for Lisa Hanna, who is a member of parliament for South East Senan and also the shadow minister for foreign trade and foreign affairs. Everyone is eagerly awaiting the conclusion of the November 7th presidential elections of the People's National Party, as everyone wants to know whom the delegates will choose. Will they choose Mark Golding, or will they choose Lisa Hanna as the next president of the People's National Party? Information coming in from sources within the People's National Party is that the PNP delegates list will be ready by Tuesday for the presidential election, which will be conducted in parishes under the control of the Electoral Office of Jamaica. In approximately 2 days, both presidential candidates, Mark Golding and Lisa Hanna, will receive the delegates list, which will be used in the November 7th internal polls to replace Dr. Peter Phillips. This presidential election will be conducted by the Electoral Office of Jamaica. It should be noted that soon after the conclusion of the September 3rd parliamentary elections, Dr. Peter Phillips made an announcement that he would be resigning from both of his posts as the opposition leader and the president of the People's National Party. Whilst many names were thrown into the ring, at the end and as the presidential elections are nearing, only Mark Golding and Lisa Hanna remain as the two candidates who have declared that they will be offering themselves to serve as the next president of the People's National Party, and they are both awaiting the votes that would come in from the delegates on November 7th, 2020. Both of these candidates have signed the Code of Conduct, which was issued by the PNP, which commits them to a clean and fair campaign. According to the party's secretariat, which is led by General Secretary Julian Robinson, they are finalizing the list for distribution to the candidates on Tuesday. Robinson was quoted as saying, "At the moment, I cannot tell you exactly how many delegates are on the list. The numbers will be different, though, as groups that would have been formed are entitled to delegates, and existing delegates may be changed, as is the right of the groups." Just over a year ago, 2,778 delegates voted in the leadership contest, which featured both Dr. Peter Phillips and former Member of Parliament Peter Bunting. Of course, that was in the year 2019, September to be exact, when Dr. Peter Phillips had to fend off a challenge from the former Manchester Central MP, Peter Bunting. Of course, Dr. Peter Phillips won by 76 votes, but went on to lead the People's National Party to a huge defeat in the September 3rd general election. The PNP only managed to win 14 seats, and the Jamaica Labour Party took all of 49 of the 63 seats that are available in the House of Representatives. According to some sources, the current list is not expected to be more than 3,000 delegates. Natalie Nita, who led Dr. Peter Phillips' campaign against Peter Bunting, is leading Lisa Hanna's campaign team. St. Andrew Western Member of Parliament Anthony Hilton is leading Mark Golding's campaign team, while Dr. Angela Brown-Burke is currently the campaign director for Mark Golding's presidential campaign. As a result of the pandemic, however, the election will be conducted in parishes and under identical conditions employed and enforced and monitored by the Electoral Office of Jamaica, similarly to in the way that they did the general election. However, this will be done on a much smaller or minute scale. In September 2020, the strict pandemic protocols that were put in place for the national polls included sanitized pencils, which were used to mark the X's for the candidate of choice. It will also be a feature of these presidential elections. Schools will be used as polling stations, and it will be done in parishes. Of course, they are putting in place the same conditions as they did for the general elections, and the candidates will be allowed to have their agents for observations at the stations. During the 2019 People's National Party's internal presidential elections, Director of Elections Glasspool Brown was also in charge of the EOJ. According to the director, at the end of the day, when the counting starts and ends, the results will be fed into our system, and we will communicate that to the General Secretary. Once we hand over the results, we would have discharged our responsibilities as per contract. However, the Director of Elections did not provide any information on the amount that he was contracted for. He stated that it was a private arrangement between the client and the Electoral Office of Jamaica. It should also be noted that Mark Golding and Lisa Hanna have been making their case on various social media platforms, and they are stating their claims on the leadership of the People's National Party. And of course, the common sentiment that is shared by both Hanna and Golding is that deep political divisions and disunity are to be blamed for the massive defeat that the People's National Party suffered at the parliamentary elections in September 2020. According to sources in the PNP, Lisa Hanna has always wanted the PNP's highest office, while Mark Golding was considered to be the reluctant leader who was willing to serve with anyone. In 2019, Lisa Hanna provided great support to Peter Phillips, whilst Golding supported Peter Bunting. Julian Robinson and party chairman Fitz Jackson have indicated that they will be demitting office once a new leader is in place. So, of course, the People's National Party will be losing Julian Robinson, Fitz Jackson, and Dr. Peter Phillips. We don't know what will happen. We are not aware if Julian Robinson will go up for re-election for the post of secretary, or if Fitz Jackson will go up again for the post of chairman of the People's National Party. Several names have been suggested as possible replacements for these individuals. However, efforts to make contact with them to get comments on this were all unsuccessful. Julian Robinson, Fitz Jackson, and Dr. Peter Phillips have served long and hard within the People's National Party. And whilst we are not aware of whom they are suggesting as replacements, we would have thought that if they demit office, then they would later be able to go up for re-election. But it seems this is not the case this time around. They are permanently demitting office as General Secretary of the People's National Party and Chairman of the People's National Party, respectively. Natalie Nita has taken leave from her post in the Secretariat as well. She did that so that she could throw her full support behind Lisa Hanna. But we await to see if, considering that Julian Robinson is demitting office, if Miss Natalie Nita will put up herself for the post of General Secretary of the People's National Party. Well, there will be lots of changes, but we hope that all of these changes will be good for the People's National Party and that they will be charting a good path and a successful path into the future. Well, until then, the delegates list is scheduled to be ready for Tuesday. And of course, persons have declared their support. We know the supporters for Mark Golding and we know the supporters for Lisa Hanna. We know what Mark Golding's plans are for the People's National Party for the rest of 2020 and for future years to come. Whilst we've heard from Lisa Hanna and she has spoken about the need for unity and love within the People's National Party, we are not fully aware of what her plans are. And we are waiting to hear what these are prior to the November 7th presidential elections for the People's National Party. Well, until then, we will wait and see. But we hope that at least a similar amount of 2,778 delegates will be on the list. How much of that amount do you think will be voting for Golding or Hanna? Thanks for watching.